Oh, indeed. Mere Mortalites, welcome back to another edition of Musings. Here with the Mere Mortals, Juan, over in this corner.
Kyron here.
In the other corner. Now, today I had a particular topic raised a couple of weeks ago that I wanted to talk about, which is being a victim or being the player. And it came from a particular TED video that I watched, and it was actually a work sort of a get-together a couple of weeks ago, and they put that video. And it triggered me. I was like, "Oh, that's cool. I like that."
Triggered you in a good way.
Triggered me in a good way. I went, I haven't, I guess, heard this particular case before in that way. Like put in that analogy, I guess. And I thought, that might be a good point to talk about from a broader sense. Did you get to check the video at all?
Yes, I watched the video.
Okay.
It's good.
It's a good man. It's a good man. And he's also got a book
link on the screen.
He's also got a book that goes into like all the details of that as well. I haven't read it, but he seems like a pretty cool dude, and I was like, okay, that could be a good thing. And realistically, and maybe I'll lay what I thought of the video. Basically, the whole concept of are you a player or are you the victim? And realistically, on the side of if you're a victim, so let's go to the other side. It's like, it broke, basically. So
things happened to me.
Things happened to me, like a vase broke. The vase broke. I was.
So I didn't break the vase.
Yeah, correct. I was late to the meeting because there was lots of traffic, or I wasn't able to do what I planned because it rained.
Why did you hurt your sister? Oh, she made me do it.
Correct. So the victim is not your fault. Things happen to you. Tough life. It's a tough life, isn't it? Now, the opposite view is the player. Now, the player is really of the opposite here of, I chose to sleep in knowing that on a Monday there's more public on the streets, there's more traffic, and so I was late. Or the other one would be, I chose to stay 10 minutes extra in this other meeting so that I would be late to this one, because I chose that one was going to be the more prominent or the more valuable one. Or, I broke the vase. Rather than the vase broke.
Yeah.
So that whole concept of, I guess I would say, ownership is also, I guess, another word that I would put to it, but I just like that analogy of player versus victim. And I wanted to ask you a challenge question to begin with.
Are you a player? Yes.
Well, no. Is it ever okay to be the victim?
I think so, yes.
When do you think it's okay? Because I think I want you to try and convince me here, because my default was no. There is never a time where being a victim, it should be the right play.
I think so. It just depends how you come across it in certain respects. So I was just thinking then, you were saying the meeting one was perfect because that is one where everyone can probably say, I've probably done that in my life.
Yeah.
So the situation was him saying, you're late to your meeting, and it was because your other meeting ran over. And so you're like, my other meeting was late. That's your explanation.
My other meeting kept me. It held me.
Yeah, instead of the explanation being, I chose to stay in this meeting that overran because etc. etc. I think in that situation there's a lot of like implied meaning behind what you're saying. So the other meeting overran. You don't need to explain why you were in this other meeting in the first place. You don't need to explain why it overran. You don't need to explain why you chose to say when it overran, i.e. I didn't want to hurt the feelings of these work colleagues. It would have looked unprofessional for me to leave that. I decided that your meeting here was, it's almost in a way just saving a whole lot of time, because you can just say, the other meeting made me late. And so everyone's like, okay, I get it. I get why that could be a thing. So I can see why, just from a pure time saving thing, acting like a victim could help. And then also you might even be saving some people's feelings by you acting like a victim. So once again, in that same situation, I could say, I chose to stay in that other meeting because I value that person more than I value you. I value their time more than your time. And so if you come to this new one and you start telling people that, like, that's rude as fuck, man.
It is, yeah.
And whilst it might be the truth, it could be one of those black truths where it's,
It's not helping.
It's not helping the situation.
It's not helping.
It's hurting it more than it's helping, even though technically it's the truth. So there's two for you there. What do you think of them?
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I hadn't considered it in that way. My immediate reaction was like, nah, I think I would challenge that and say that perhaps being the player is more powerful and taking ownership. But then you mentioned that the whole black truth, or even though it is probably correct that you should be telling the truth, does it actually help the scenario? But maybe there's some middle ground there, and this is where I like the analogy, player versus victim, or the other term, ownership.
Yeah,
but I think
it's Drucko-esque.
It's Drucko-esque, like extreme ownership. Is it extreme ownership, player mentality, or is it victim? Like, shit happens to me. But I think that I went, there can be a little bit of a middle ground still. You can have a middle ground. And I thought, okay, maybe not that you can be a victim all the time, but there are scenarios, let's take that meeting, where I think you don't have to be either. As in, when you might come into that meeting and say, oh, yeah, I'm late, sorry, that meeting overran. Maybe it's actually more valuable and doesn't have to you put yourself a victim like, oh, that meeting overran. Just say, like, I'm late. Continue. That's it.
Yeah,
I'm late, apologies, continue on. Like, sure, whatever might have been that actually caused it to be late, it's not like the other person in the meeting actually gives a shit, potentially. You could just be like, okay, you're late. Maybe there's and maybe I'm saying this, like, you have to have like a really great group or be positive people to be able to acknowledge that, because maybe, you're late to a meeting with the CEO and you're having ice cream and you say, yeah, sorry,
yeah, I'm late.
Apologies, let's continue. And then he's like, what the fuck, what's going on?
And you're like drunk as shit. Just rocking up like, I'm late. Well, yeah, it's an explanation, but it doesn't explain why you're...
So maybe there can be some extremes there, and there I would say, okay, you have to take some ownership in that scenario, and that's... But I think there's others where you can simply say, no, I'm late, and it's not... You can say, I'm late, and I feel like that sounds like player. No, it's not all the way to you saying, I'm late, and it's because I chose this. You can just say, I'm late, that's it. I take that ownership, but don't have to go into all the other explanations.
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, okay. There's probably a middle ground there that I can see, but I wouldn't call it that being a victim is helpful. Yeah. I wouldn't say that being a victim in all scenarios is helpful.
No, in my cases, I was sort of thinking it's more of a concession of sorts. It's for the sake of brevity, for the sake of this person, I'm just going to frame it in this way so as to not to hurt them, or to save time, or etc. So it's almost what it makes me think of what you were just saying then was a player. We've all had people as well who you don't care they're late, but they need to come in, they need to fully explain. It's important for them, for you to understand. You're like, I don't give a shit. But they're like, no, but this happened, and then this happened.
It's fine, I don't doesn't even matter.
Yes,
cool, continue on.
It's like your version of being a player. It's, okay, this person was late. I'm not going to let it affect me. Let's just continue on. But they are then still trying to drag that, like they committed the original sin, and then they're like, recommitting the sin again, even if they're
making it worse.
Even if they're trying to
they explain for a minute and you're like, you've now wasted another extra minute.
That being said, that situation I just said, 99% of the time it'll be the person explaining in the victim mindset and not in the player mindset. So a rare occurrence, but I have met some people in life who are players, and when I say player, when he says player, what do you visualize, I guess, when he says player? When
I visualized, and it took me a little while, because the victim one was easy. I think player was like someone who is in control, who takes like sort of the control of you, joystick terminology, like you've got the joystick of what your actions are, so it's saying like, no, this is what I did, this is my choice, and this is what happened because of it.
Yeah, so the two that come to me is one, a sports player, in essence, so someone who is really taking actions more like real, it's like a physical type thing going on. The other is a player as in a guy who picks up women, just because I've had that history of the past. That word player is imprinted in my mind, and so I'm sort of thinking of a guy who is very directful, forceful, going out, trying to make things happen with the opposite sex. And the thing with that is, you can be a player, and I've met some in real life, and they are constant. It's almost weird, man. They're weird people in the sense they take too much interest in like being forceful, direct, confident.
Which could be a negative. Which could be
Yeah.
a negative in not all cases, but in some cases.
I've recounted that story in the past about the guy who kept leaning
yeah.
because he wanted to show how disinterested he was, so that he had this weird
Ultra backwards lean.
Yeah, I'll do it. Where it's
God damn.
and so he'd be talking with a girl, and he'd be a meter. Their legs would maybe be half a meter away from each other, but
his
he'd
head
be
would be like a meter away.
and
That's
a bit
so
away.
weird, dude.
Yeah,
It's so weird.
So funny to watch.
It's when, like, you know, when that's when, you know, like, where the theory just doesn't match up with the practicality of it all. When it's like, oh, but in theory, you know, this distancing in space, it's like, well, then if I take it to the nth degree, it's going to work out.
Women love persistence, and then you're the Indian troll who's just persistently hitting on that one girl on Instagram
over and over
50
and
times, and it's, she's made abundantly clear she's not interested, but you're like, persistence, I got to get after it. Let's make the next thing happen.
Default persistence.
Yeah.
Here's another question for you, because I like going down the trend of, I think we understand what the player and all the ownership layer is. It's basically when you're like, yes, I take full control, I take full ownership. But victim mentality, I think it affects all of us as mere mortals. What do you think it affects you the most, even to date, of like, you still have a victim mentality? And I'll give you some time to think about it. I'll give you mine one for sure, because it just always happens to me. I'll get home from work, right? It'll be whatever, 4:30, 5:30, 6, whatever it may be. And I know full well that at night time, there's lots of stuff I want to be able to do. I want to read. I want to maybe have some dinner. I want to go and inspect other things for the mere mortals, whether it's website updates, maybe it's doing reviews, whatever it may be, right? But I will come home, and I know full well that I'll put my bag down upstairs, I might take my shoes off, and I will lay down on the bed, and my phone will slide out, and I go, cool, I'm going to catch up on some TikTok or some Instagram, right? And it's genuinely normally TikTok, and I'll pull it out, and it is not because I want to be entertained. That's not the reason I'm doing it. And I think the more I thought about it, I was like, I think in that moment, I play the victim for sure in my mind of like, I've had a hard day. I was busy. I might have had back-to-backs. Maybe I was doing a lot of work. Whatever it might have been. I deserve to chill out for 10 minutes, 15 minutes before I go do something else. And I think I play the victim in my mind of, yeah, I've had a hard day today. Like, life was hard today. Things happened. I need to do this because it'll, at least in a transient way, be like, oh, this is happiness delivered quickly in little consumable bits. But then it goes from 10 minutes to 15 minutes to 20 minutes to 25 minutes, and then I'm like, oh shit, okay, no. Not that I say to myself like, I can see that I was playing the victim, I need to move on. But I go, oh shit, I've just wasted a lot of time, I better go do something else.
Is that because, if you could just consistently stick to the 10 or 15 minutes, do you think you would feel bad? I.e., is your mindset so much that I should be on all the time? As in, I don't even deserve... Even though you're convincing yourself that you deserve it, that you shouldn't deserve it? Like, Optimal One would not be deserving of any...
No, it's not even that. It's not the mentality of Optimal One, because even if at that point I had pulled out TikTok to watch it for entertainment, then I'd be okay with it. Like, if I'd watch it, I'd be like, oh, I want to be entertained. Purely for entertainment. Like, I want to find something funny that I can watch. I'll go scroll through it, and again, maybe it'd be 10, 15, 20 minutes. But that's a different thing. I think what initiated it goes, oh, I've had a tough day. Like, I have had a tough day, or I had to, this person was a terrible person to have a conversation with, or this person didn't deliver this. Some sort of like that will splice in, and then I'll be like, no, I deserve to go and open this up and just go have mindless information come to me. But it doesn't begin at like I want to be entertained. So I'll give you a difference. Another thing, like, I would have come home one day, but instead of being like, oh, I'm playing the victim of, oh, something happened, like, things happened, so I want to do this, I was more like, no, I want to watch this video of Sideman or Side Talk, whatever it's called, of the New York City, because I find it funny, and I'm like, oh, I want to be entertained, and I want to watch the videos. So I watched a couple of videos, but then I was able to watch it for a couple of videos, and I was like, okay, cool, alright, let's just go do something else. But it didn't come from like, I was playing victim. Whereas when I do play that victim card, I see myself just like mindlessly looking at it, not even for any reason or purpose of entertainment, just like, because I feel like I deserve it.
Okay, gotcha. For me, it's usually other people's doing, and once again, it's other people doing things to me. No, it's my reaction to what other people do. This is where Stoic philosophy comes in handy and why I like Stoic philosophy. But it's usually along the lines of, this person made an offhand comment, probably not meaning to hurt me, but I took it the wrong way. Or they think I'm, ugly because I'm bald, or they think I'm not funny or not interesting, or they don't respect my time, or whatever it is. Plenty of things come up. Or when I came into this group, they stopped talking. Maybe they don't like me. Those sorts of things. It's not
all fair possibilities.
Yeah, it's probably true. It's not something that constantly plagues me, but it crops up often enough that it's like, those are the times where I'll be like, this person was mean, sort of self-talk in a way. This person was mean to me. I am blah, blah, blah. And so it's sort of like getting down on myself.
Yep.
And that's where I'll play the victim up in my head, for sure.
But here's the pause there. So from what you're saying, 'cause I think this happens to like every person, every human, every mere mortal, where something will get said and then you will go, oh, that person said this and made me feel this way, and then you feel down on yourself for whatever purpose. But the funny thing is like, that experience or that occurrence happens all the time for most people, right? For most humans, that happens all the time. And then we don't see that it's the fact that we play the victim in that space that causes us to go down that path, and we never change. Like, it's such a hard thing to change, to not play that card.
Yeah.
And you might do it sometimes, like in that Stoic philosophy way. I think, by the by, I've improved in that, where like people say that, I'm not defaulting anymore and being like, oh, they said that. It's much more often now. It's like, oh no, like, I'll take it this way, or I know that I did this because of a certain purpose, and that's, I guess, more of a player ownership mentality than the victim. But it still pops up, and even when it still pops up, it's like, again, when it pops up, I'm not really reflecting back on it, being like, oh shit, last time I played a victim, this happened. It's like, nah, just like happens again, happens again.
It's just a natural one. And it's funny because I know plenty of people who will do the exact same thing, but with life. My car broke down, my car bloody hates me, or it was a perfect day, my wedding was going to be this day, but it was rainy and wet, and life just hates me, sort of thing. And they'll play the victim in the sense for natural occurrences in the world. Like, what are you gonna, like, against weather and against random shit breaking, which shit is tend to do.
Yeah.
So, but I don't have that one, for example. Like, that bypasses me. I can have a shitty day of weather and just be like, oh, okay, whatever, it's a shitty day of weather, I want to do my workout today, obviously I can't. Fine, move on.
Yep.
That one doesn't affect me as much. It's the real personal, interpersonal ones which have a more stronger effect, I guess. Yeah,
and I don't know if it's often that it's common that it's one or the other, in the sense that, like, oh, if you're good at those interpersonal conversations to not become the victim, then you do play the victim card, and like that other things, like it's gonna rain, and like, oh man, like, yeah, it rained and so I couldn't go and do this or that. I wonder if it's common that if you're good at one, you're terrible at the other, or vice versa.
Maybe. Do you know, well, I know people who are terrible at both, and both affect them. Do you know, but on the opposite side, do you know anyone who's sort of a natural player, or just someone who's developed themselves into being a player?
I think that the only ones that come to mind are those that I don't know personally. So I was going to say so much Gary Vee, but I was probably going to say someone like Tom Bilyeu. So I reckon like Tom Bilyeu would be someone who wasn't like that and trained himself to be both as a person and with like general things. I'm imagining Jocko is the same thing, right? And very much a extreme ownership sort of level stuff. Obviously I don't know these people personally, so I couldn't say that is what always occurs.
You've got a Gary Vee email, man.
That's true. That's
pretty much you're best friends with him now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm basically best friends. That's what it is.
I'm in.
I don't know anyone personally though who's extreme player. I guess I don't know anybody who's to that extent. I have worked with some people who are like that, sort of, but it's not always that they play that. So I don't think general mere mortals in any case live in either of the extreme states.
Yeah,
like not I don't think many people are all player or all victim. I think you can kind of say like, oh, I'm in some aspects I am one or the other. Some aspects I might be more of a victim, but maybe just slide towards one way or another.
For sure. The topic really brought up something for me, which was what I'd gotten from Tim Ferriss a while ago, and I'd heard him talking about this book, and man, you mere mortalites at home better appreciate this, because I couldn't remember the name of the book, and I spent 15 minutes, 20 minutes just trying to find it. So I was going through, Google, Tim blog, Tim book recommendations, went through, he's got this huge page with this massive list
page,
of book, it wasn't in there. And then I eventually just stumbled upon the right keyword, which was communication. Communication. So I was typing in conversations. It's called Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg.
Yep.
It's probably one of the only books I've ever heard in an audio version. And I say hear, people, I don't mean read. No, you can't read an audiobook. You listen to an audiobook. And this is bang on with pretty much what we're saying. So nonviolent communication is essentially a book about how you can speak with your partner or loved one, very similar things. It's not you did this and you made me feel bad. It's this happened, I reacted to it this way, and this is the feelings that came up with me. It's real, it's not using the, what would it be, like first person talk. It's almost trying to
elevate that.
Yeah, it's using it. Sorry, it would be first person talk. I felt this because.
Well, it's first person of yourself, not first person of the other individual.
Yeah, which would be third person in a way. You made me do this and this, blah blah blah, or like as if an outside observer was saying it was him. He did. He did this thing to me, and and then that affected Kyron in this way. No. It's the opposite. So. That's just a good recommendation, I could say, if you want to expand upon this topic to go down that route. And I thought it was pretty good. I was listening to it and went, I think this is pretty bang on. I can see how I've made situations worse in my life by using. And the funny thing is, they call it violent communication.
Yeah.
Not so sure about that.
Violent communication. It's pretty extreme.
Yeah, for sure. But I could see, that I made the situation worse by phrasing it in this way, i.e. in the victim mentality.
But sometimes, and this goes back to my original point of, is it right sometimes to be able to play the victim card? Like, is that appropriate? Is there places? And one thing I was thinking about is, I think you genuinely have to ask yourself a question, in that first person view, not attacking other people or even their ideas or whatever, and just going like, actually, like, if I could have done anything else, anything different to actually make this a better situation, or this not to occur. Perhaps, like, let's say you're going to get married and it rains, or it's been raining and it's outside, you're doing an outdoor wedding. Like, maybe don't be surprised or play the victim card if on the day of your wedding it rains. Like, shit, you could have done something about it. Maybe umbrellas, could have moved it inside.
Yeah, could have booked an indoor place from the get-go.
Could have changed something. Like, okay, don't play. It's hard to play the victim card there because you had an opportunity. Now, let's take the same scenario of traffic we were talking about earlier. Like, I was late to the meeting because there was lots of traffic, so I couldn't get there. Maybe the reality was maybe you knew about traffic, maybe you didn't. But
like, let's just say you were proactive. I know there's normally traffic on this day. I'm going to leave an hour earlier, and it was just
a car crash.
A one in a 1,000 day car crash occurs on the freeway, and it holds you up for 3 hours.
Let's say you're driving around, you stop by the traffic lights, a kid fell out outside and you want to help him out, and a meteorite hits a car, right? And a meteorite hits a car. And it's small.
Everyday occurrence to us mere mortals.
I think it's okay to play the victim card there. Like, if you make it to work 3 hours.
The odds are that,
like,
once the odds get above this much,
it's okay. Play the victim card. You can be like, you know what? Life served me a shitty hand there. Yeah. There is nothing I could have done about it. Yeah. Literally nothing. I'm okay to have the victim card. I think it's just you don't then put that forth as being like, then I'm not, I will never drive again because of this. Okay, I think that's playing the victim card too far.
Yeah.
But you can play the victim card for a little time. Because it's appropriate. It's appropriate.
Here's a fucking fantastic... So I've been doing tons of research on Adam Curry because I'm having him on the show next week.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, one of the most interesting people you'll ever hear about. He's just done so much stuff. And I'll condense this part really quickly. He started a company related to creating websites back in the .com boom. Went public with it. Sold just before the .com crash.
Nice.
In 1999.
Good timing.
Very good timing, and he sold it, I think he said, for $420 million. Obviously, other people had shares and stock, but let's just say he came out of this a multi-millionaire.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're a multi-millionaire? Well, if you're Adam Curry, you go to Belgium, you buy a castle, you start multiple different companies with another dude who has also sold his company recently. One of those being a helicopter business.
Nice.
And so he was renting out helicopters, like high-end luxury helicopters. He had 2. Now, 3 things happened to him within the space of a couple of years. One, this dude he'd known for like 8 years of his life was sent out an email to everyone saying, oh, by the way, this isn't my real name. I'm wanted by Scotland Yard for these sort of incidents. I have no money. I'm off to Cambodia. Goodbye. So, half of his businesses are now bleeding cash because his friend fully deserted him. 2, I think he said, like, all right, I'm going to have to shut one of them down, but I want to keep the helicopter business so I can keep this going. Next happens, 9/11. Yeah. So no one's going to be flying after that. Once again, you could play a pretty good victim card for that. I didn't expect that to happen. And then the best one of all, so he had 2 helicopters, sold one of them at a loss. And then it was sort of shown as like a luxury one for, I guess, like old rich white guys, let's just say, because all the marketing promotions were, he had a female helicopter pilot who was good looking. He had his wife appearing as a concierge or something like that as well. Yeah. And his bloody female helicopter pilot who had served in the U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, etc., developed a fear of flying. So
wow, god damn.
So apparently to this day she still doesn't fly, and so he was like, all right, I get it. I'm not gonna. This business isn't gonna survive.
Get into this business.
Yeah. So that is where 3 pretty big incidents where you're like, yeah, you know what? Odds are that's probably not going to happen again to anyone who starts up a helicopter business.
Damn. But yeah, look, in those scenarios for Adam, look, kudos. You could probably play the victim card. Obviously, don't play it long term, but you can play the victim card in the immediate.
Yeah. So that was early 2000s. Early 2000s. That was happening.
I would be interested. I don't know what sort of questions you wanted to pose to Adam, but maybe I would be interested to see what some of his takeaways or how he sort of moved on from some of those scenarios.
That's a good one.
Sort of personally for him, like, did he play the victim card? How long did he play the victim card? Like, how much was it? Okay, no, I've got to get it. Like, I've got to actually now put something to this. Because, like, as you say, if your mate just like, oh, yeah, I've got to go to Cambodia, like, see you later. Sure, you'd be like, God fucking damn this person.
Yeah.
But, like, how long did it take for it to be like, okay, no, I've got to do something about this.
Yeah. That's a good question.
I'll be interested about that.
For sure. Any more you've got? Last one I was just thinking of the word. Let's maybe make this more practical. So, are you trying to make yourself more of a player than a victim? Are you doing anything to work on being more of a player?
I'm trying not to be... No, I would say my mentality is not to be more of a player, but be less of a victim. I think that's probably the better terminology here. Yep. So I think being also too much of a player in that mentality like card doesn't also help out all the time. I think if I could be less of a victim at the times where it's probably not needed, like my mindlessly just scrolling through, yes, that could be giving me time to go and do other things. It's probably more productive, more optimal, or doing it for better reasons than just being it because it's like playing a victim card. Because then that just like perpetuates me wanting to do it again and playing it again and being like, oh, if this happens, oh, I want to go do this, so I want to play the victim card. So I think less of being the victim.
Yeah. For me, whilst an interesting topic, it's just not important enough to be something I'm even willing to devote any attention to. Yep. So whilst I 100% know I could be more of a player and be less of a victim, it doesn't feel like it's holding me back right now.
Yep. I wouldn't say that either. I wouldn't say that it's also something that at the moment for me is like, oh yeah, it's such a terrible affliction that it's holding me back. No.
Yeah. So, maybe if I had more occurrences in my life where people were saying, maybe noticing that friendships were breaking apart because I was acting like a whiny bitch, to put it in disrespectful terms. Then yes, okay, that would be like, oh, something's happening here.
True.
I need to look at the way I use language, and it's funny, I guess, like this whole thing is centered around language
as well.
What is the language, the self-talk that you're saying to yourself, and then how does that make you feel, and then how do your feelings then make you act in the world? So
correct.
Yeah, it's useful to go back to the core language
piece. Yeah,
piece.
I mean, indeed, what you want to be, like, I mean, a blissful state would be that what you think, that what you say, and what you act are all the same. But if they're going down the path of an incorrect way, then it's like, oh shit, well, I'll be thinking this way, which leads me to say things this way or think this way, and then act in like some random way or play the victim card.
For sure.
Be less of a victim, folks. Be less of a victim.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good takeaway.
That's a summary. Yeah. Be less of a victim. Maybe don't get too consumed on being a player always. Just be less of a victim where you need it to be.
Gotta make things happen.
All right, me immortalized. We're going to leave it at that for today for Musings. I hope you found some great takeaways. One item that I want to say, be less of a victim myself. I'm not going to be sitting here and be like, oh, why are we not getting enough boostagrams? That's coming through. So I'm gonna take the initiative this here and say, folks, me immortalized out there, we are a value for value enabled podcast, and we ask you, I'm not telling you to, but I'm asking you that you should be supporting us through those platforms if you can. If you have the means to support us through there, you should. Why? Because this podcast doesn't run on the joy in my heart to be able to put the effort and time to go and do these things. So we do need your support.
It sort of does at the moment, but it can't always.
It can't always.
One's
It can't
heart
forever.
is becoming blackened
and non-existent.
If you listen to the previous meanderings, he's becoming more negative people. He's gonna live in that mindset unless you send some sats through.
Unless you send some sats through.
And,
actually, I wouldn't even send one sat through, but a good comment, that's always appreciated. Or go jump in the Discord channel, leave a comment. Fun interactions over there. You'll get to see also some of the back end interactions, how we put together book reviews and whatnot, and some of the thoughts as well.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah,
sure.
so if you want to do it, feel free to do it. That's what I'm trying to. You want to get some? Go get some.
But you want to appear on the main stage, the big show, you're gonna have to send a boostagram.
That's right. That's how
it works.
All right, me immortalites. That is it. One out.
Thanks for joining. Karen out.
Booey.